Hello, and welcome to the first in a series of videos I'm going to share with you about how to take your XD files that you use to create your app and export those images and then rebuild your app in Dreamweaver using jQuery Mobile to be specific, which is what we've been using to do the online tutorials. Now, what I'm going to be providing you with is a downloadable file that has a template in it for the jQuery page. And what that's going to be is it's going to be this little folder right here called My App. I'm going to zip that up and put that on the website. You'll be able to download that and unzip it. And inside here, this is what you'll see, all these different folders. Now, all of these folders, with the exception of this jQuery mobile folder, were created when I used the PhoneGap app here. I just simply clicked the plus symbol and said I wanted to create a new blank page and or a new blank interface, I should say, for an app. And it created this folder. I called it My App, and it created all these files, right? Then I went into Dreamweaver and I simply created, I opened up that page that it created, which when you create a app in PhoneGap, it, like I said, it creates all these folders with the exception of this one. And then inside the www folder, it creates an index page. And I opened that index page and simply added the jQuery mobile folder to that page inside of Dreamweaver. So now we have the PhoneGap, all the stuff you need for PhoneGap to create an application, a mobile app, which is all these files. Plus we have the jQuery mobile scripts, which is what you need to work in Dreamweaver and create an app in jQuery. And of course it comes with, as I said, an index page, right? So this is what you'll get. You'll get a zipped up version of this folder. Now, what you'll need to do is download this folder, put it somewhere on your computer like your desktop, obviously unzip it, and then you'll need to point to this folder in Dreamweaver. So the way you would do that is you would open up Dreamweaver and it's called setting up a site. You would go up to site, new site. You would name that site probably something like My App, which is what we're calling this app. You would click on this folder here. You would go to wherever it's located, like your desktop here, and you would go ahead and find the My App folder. Let's see, it's way here. You would select that and you would click choose, right? I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it, but you would click choose, and then, you know, uh, this is only showing red because I've done it already. If I give it a different name, like My App 3 or something, the red should go away. Anyway, so you'll name it My App. You'll click on this folder. You'll go and you'll point to the folder, the My App folder on your desktop or wherever, and then you'll simply hit save. Now I'm going to cancel out of this because I've already done it. And once you do that, it'll come up and it'll show you this. It'll show you that there's a folder called My App, or a site called My App, which has a My App folder in it. And inside there is all this cool stuff, right? And then from there, you can just double click on index.html to open up this page here. Now this page is a very basic HTML page. It has all your essential HTML code on it, like the doc type HTML and the beginning and ending HTML tags, the head tags, and the body tags. And then it's got links to some scripts. This one here is for your mobile app device for the interface. These are all the jQuery mobile links so that all the buttons and everything will work. And then I simply went in and added a page with a header and a footer using the insert menu here with the jQuery mobile dropdown. And you can click here to make a page, and then it asks you if you want a header and footer with that page, right? If I click page, it asks you if you want a header and footer, you hit OK, and then it drops in this data here. Now, in addition, you can open the jQuery mobile swatches, and that will allow you to pick from different themes. But what I did was I wrote data theme equals quote none because I didn't want a theme here. I just wanted it to be blank so I could put in my graphics and everything. So once you download this file, unzip it, put it on your desktop, point Dreamweaver to it, set up a new site. You can double click on the index file in the www folder, which is right here, and you'll get this page right here that I'm on. And this is what it looks like. This is going to be your template for making a working version of your app. Now, I know some of your apps have many pages, and you don't have to, make all those pages work at once. You can just do a skeletal version of your app if you want, just to get the hang of how it works. Of course, you could finish it off completely if you have the time, or just, link some of the pages together just to see how the process works. Now, what I'm going to do as an example here is I'm going to show you how I export the graphics from XD and how I build a home page here using this template file. Okay, and I'm also giving you the example of the finished file so that you can look at it, and I'm giving you my graphics so you can look at those as an example too. So for example, if we go into the images folder, actually let me close this real quick. If we open up files here and we open up this images folder in here, we're going to see there's a bunch of images in there already, and these images are all the images that I use to build the first page of my app, right? And the first page of my app, you can see it right here. It's open. It's called wildcore.html, and that's this page right here. If you open that up, this is what it looks like. So it's just a background image with the Wildcore logo, 5 buttons, and a dragon down here. And of course, the header and footer, the jQuery header and footer, are just sitting up there at the top and the bottom, waiting to be configured, with buttons or links or whatever. So this is what we're going to build real quick, and we're going to start over in XD, exporting the graphics, and then we're going to put in the code so that all this looks the way it looks. And then the idea is that then you would do the same thing with your home page, export the graphics from XD, and then start writing the code in Dreamweaver to get that to all look like this, all be together, and then you would have, the first page of your app. And I'll make subsequent videos where we can make these into buttons, make the header and footer, and some of the other features that you're going to add to your apps. Okay, so let's start with, let's go over to XD. And this is the app that I'm working on, this little game app. And because we did some examples of this in class, there's one way to export all this stuff. You could, highlight everything with your mouse and then go plugins, web export, export artboard. And this is the really sophisticated version of exporting, where you can export the JavaScript and a separate CSS style sheet, and do all kinds of crazy thing with images. And that's fine. There may come a time and point when you want to do that. But for right now, we're working under the model that, let's say that you're the designer and you've designed an XD file to show the developer how you want the app to be built. So what you're really just going to give them is the graphics, and then plus the XD file so they can see how everything works. Now, in your case, you're both the designer and the developer. You're going to do both sets of work. But one of the reasons I don't want to use this web export is because it brings too much over. It brings really complicated HTML over that's a pain in the butt to deal with, and it's much simpler just to deal with the graphics themselves. Now, one thing I have to say before you export your graphics is when you make a set of buttons like this, oftentimes you use that repeat grid feature to make all the buttons repeat one after another. Before you export your graphics, you're going to have to, if you have any of these repeat grids, whether it's pictures or buttons like this, click on it and it'll show all of them connected. And then up here, it'll give you a choice that says something to the effect of like break apart grid or whatever. It's not showing now because I've already broken apart my grid. But click that button to make these broken apart so each one is a separate button. And it'll make your life much easier with ways that you want to, when you get into Dreamweaver, all you'll have to do is click on this and make it a link to whatever page you want it to go. Like world will link to this rules page, right, or world page. Okay, now so once again, go through all these pages and break apart all your repeat grids. The other thing you want to do, we don't really need this iPhone 11 graphic in here. That was just, to help us figure things out position-wise and everything. Let's get rid of that, right? Now what we're going to do is the simplest possible export. We're just going to drag our mouse around the first page here, and we're simply going to go File, Export, select it, right? Now, inside here, you get your choice of what format you want to export the files in. I'm going to choose PNG because it's a good format that maintains transparency and it looks good. You can choose to export these for design purposes for the web, for iOS or Android. I'm going to choose iOS because if we do web, it gives you all the images at 100% and 200%. But if we choose iOS, it also gives them to you at 300%. And the reason you want multiple images is because of the different resolutions of phones. Different phones will grab different images, right? Over here in Android, it's the same idea, but it just has different names from MDPI instead of 1x and XHDPI instead of 2x. Okay, but we'll choose iOS. Now, what you want to do is you want to navigate to your My App folder that you have on your desktop. You want to navigate inside the www folder and inside the images folder. And then you want to hit export. Now when you do that, it's going to export 3 versions of each image. One at 100%, one at 200, one at 300%. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes from that. Now you'll just hit the export button. Now I'm not going to do it because I've already done it. And we can just jump over there and see what mine looks like, right? So let's see. If I go into desktop, My App, okay, My App, www, images. Okay, this is everything that got exported. So for example, that background here, this orangey background, there's 3 versions of that, 3 versions of the dragon, 3 versions of the wildcard logo, and since I have 5 buttons here, there's 15 buttons, you know, three copies of each, right? So that all got dropped into my images folder, right? And of course, it's in your images folder right now because I set this up so that you could do this demo at home. Now, if we go back to Dreamweaver, right, we can look in here and we can look inside the images folder and we can see that all of that stuff is there already, okay? And that was what was used to make this wildcard page. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the index page and we're going to build this wildcard page from scratch, right? So what I would recommend that you do is go into your index page and you'll want to save this so you can use it to build your own app. So let's give this a new name. So let's call this a wildcard 2. So wildcard 2. So we have a wildcard page in there, which is my finished version of it that you want to keep so you can use that for reference. But now we'll save this as wildcard 2 and hit save. Okay, so wildcard 2 is basically just the blank page here. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to put in the background image, okay? And in order to put background image in, you got to put a block of code in. Now, the easiest way for you to do this would be go ahead and open up the wildcard.html file so you can grab code from there, right? Now, the code that we're going to want to put the background image in is this block of code right here. It's called body. Starts here at body on line 12 and it goes all the way down. Actually, hold on a second. Let's start here with the what's called the style tag on line 8 and go all the way down to the end style on line 25, right there, okay? So let's right click on this and hit copy. And then we're going to go to our wildcard 2 page. We're going to go up here and we're going to click after the word title here and make some space. So it's going to be after the title, but it's going to be before all these links to the jQuery stuff. And then we're just going to do a Command V and paste in all that stuff, right? Now, when we do that, all of a sudden that red background comes in. Now, how does it come in? Well, what happened is, if you recall, the body tag is a tag which affects the entire website, or in this case, the app. And what we've said is for the body, we want the background image to be an image which is in the images folder, which is called c5.png, right? And if you roll your mouse over this, it'll show you that little thing, right? That little file. And sure enough, if you look in images, there's a c5.ping, and that is this images right here, this image here. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, make that the background image. And then we're saying, you know, if necessary, go ahead and repeat it, you know, center it, make it scrollable, make it 100% the size of the viewfinder, which is the phone, or the mobile device, right? We're also saying that we want the pages themselves to have transparent backgrounds and the content to have transparent backgrounds so you can see this background which is behind all the content in the pages. So that's what all of this code is doing, and of course it's between style tags, which makes this basically an internal style sheet for your app, right? Now there's one other style that came along with this, which is called the home button style, and that's a style that I made manually. All this other code I got off the internet. I just looked around for how to put a background in on a PhoneGap app, and that was the code that dropped in. So I just found that and pasted it in. Now this, I'll show you a little bit in a second when we make the buttons, why this exists and how that was made. Okay, so right now we've got our background, and now we want to basically start at the top and work our way down for the page. Now we're going to leave the header and footer alone and just fill in the content and leave those for another video where we can adjust those. Now the first thing we probably want to do, this footer, it's kind of annoying the fact that it sticks up here at the top right underneath where the content is trying to go. I like to stick that thing down at the bottom. So to do that, what you want to do is you want to find what's called data role equals footer, which is the div that holds a footer. You want to click in there and you want to type data dash position, and of course your code hints will come up, and then you can choose fixed. Okay, and what will happen is that footer will drop down to the bottom where it's supposed to be, and now it's far less annoying, right? Now you probably want to save on a regular basis. I hit Command S on a regular basis, of course Control S on a PC, just so you don't lose anything, right? Now we're going to leave the header alone. Like I said, we'll deal with that another day. We're going to leave the footer alone. So everything we're going to deal with is going to be right here in this content area. We're going to put in the logo, the 5 buttons, and the dragon, which will be, will take us to this area where we create something that looks like this, right? Okay, so what we can do is we can go into this area where the content is, and we can, make some space around it so we can see that this is where all our content's going to go. We can, of course, delete the word content because we're not going to have that in there. And then every piece of content that's going to be on this page is going to go between the begin div tag and the end div tag for this content area. So, if you want, you can make space here to hold all your content, right? And then we can drop it in there. Now, of course, when you delete something over here, it doesn't automatically update over here. Sometimes you have to click over here for it to update. All right, so what do we want to put in there? Well, we want to put in the logo, the 5 buttons and the dragon. And of course, we want all of that content to be centered and to be each thing on its own line. Now, one of the things we know is we want everything to be in the center of the page. So the first thing we can do is go into this div, which is going to hold the content, make some space in there, and you see all the code hints that come up here, all the things we can possibly do in this div. Let's use a line and let's use center. And so now anything we put in there is going to hang out in the center. Now the next thing we want to do is we want everything to have its own line. In other words, there will be a piece of content here, and then there'll be a new line of content, so on and so forth. Now one of the easiest ways to do that is to make a div tag for each item, right? So I'm going to have, let's see, one header or one logo, 5 buttons, and a dragon. So that's 7. So I can take this div tag here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I don't know why it does this crazy indent thing. It's trying to help us out and get our code to look well formed, but it actually is not helpful in this case. Usually it's pretty helpful, but right now it's not. Okay, but I just want them all kind of lined up like that. Now, all I really have to do is drop in my graphics, which are inside of my images folder, into each of these div areas. So I'm going to click inside the first div area, and I'm going to go up here and say insert image, I'm gonna, navigate to my images folder, which is in my www folder in my app. And then I have to, be able to locate the images by their names, right? Or change this to graphics so I can see everything. So let's choose. You want the 100% version of everything, so it's going to be the one with the number 1 as opposed to the 2x or the 3x. So let's start with the Wildcore logo. Let's drop it in there, and there it is. Looks good, right? Click on the next inside the next div tag, and then we might have to go back to XD to see which one was first. So World Campaign. I'm not going to remember them all. World Campaign Rulebook. Let's remember 3. World Campaign Rulebook. So click there. We'll go world, which is, well, in this case, it's actually easier to look at the list. What it did was it numbered them. And so the first one was called enabled, and the second was called enabled 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert enabled because I know that's the first one. And then that'll make it so that I don't have to remember the names of them. I just have to insert them by their image names. So that was 1. That's 2. We want to go insert image 3. And once again, I'm inserting the 100% size versions of these um, as opposed to the 200% or 300%. So now we're up to 4. And then 5. Image. Oops. Let's see. So there was an. Let's see. I think I missed one. Okay, there was enabled, and then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, and so that makes a total of 5. But I screwed up, and while I was talking to you, I forgot one. Maybe I forgot 3. Let's insert 3 in and see what if that was the one I missed. Nope, it wasn't. Oh well, which one did I miss? Let's see. Community. Do I have community in there? I do. I have campaigns. I don't have campaigns. So maybe it was 2 that I missed. Oh no, it was 1 that I missed. You can see right here. Um, there was one called 1 that I didn't get in there, and you can see because you can look enabled and then 2, 3, 4, right? So if I grab this and drop it up here, and then I go enabled. Yeah, here it is. See what happened was I dropped in enabled and I assumed that was 1 and then it just went to 2, but I was incorrect. Okay, so now they're correct. World Campaign Rulebook Compositions Community, which is the same as that. Okay, great. So now we've got those. We can put the dragon in. Okay, and the dragon is right there. And there it is. Now, when we look at this, it looks similar to this. But there's one thing that's different, which is the spacing that exists between all of these buttons, right? And you can add spacing to anything in HTML, which of course we're building this in an HTML format, right? So what we want to do is we want to put spacing between the buttons. Now the easiest way to do this in this case is to add space to the bottom of each button, and that's called margin. And so there's a setting called margin dash bottom, and you can put in as much space as you want. Now, inside of an HTML document like this, you probably don't want to use pixels. You want to use a measurement system called EMS, because that is a proportionate measurement system that works across all different devices. So you could say 1 EM or half an EM and see how big it is and then change the size accordingly. Now, if you recall, when I pasted in this style for the background, it also brought in this thing called home buttons. And I told you I would explain this later. Now is the time I'm going to explain it. So what I did was I made a new style. In fact, I'll cut this out and show you what I'm talking about. I'll just kind of remake it now. So I identified a problem, which was that I need more space between these buttons. So I'm going to create a solution. So the solution is I'm going to create a new class. So I'm going to create a class called home buttons. And I'm going to put the curly braces here and make some space there to move the curly brace down. And I'm going to move this over so that it's lined up with my other styles. And of course, I'm between the style tags here so that this becomes an internal style. And then I'm going to put in my my style here, margin dash bottom, and then colon, which means equals, and I'll, I could do something like 1 EM, and then put a semicolon to end the line, right? So now I've got a new style called home buttons, and it says margin bottom is 1 EM. Now what happens is you create the style first, and then you call the style from wherever you want that style to be applied. In this case, it's the buttons. So I've got a new class called .home buttons, right? And dot, of course, means class. So if I come down to the buttons themselves, which are all these down here, I can click on one. It'll show me which one this is. And then inside of the tag for that button, I can call the class. So I can say class equals quote, and it's going to find the class that I have up there at the top. So I'll say home buttons, and then I'll put a space in there so that it's not right up against the word width. So it says class equals home buttons now inside of the image tag for that button. And you can see that this is what 1 EM looks like. That's how much space it created, right? Now, that 1 EM may be perfect or it may be too big or too small. I thought it was a little big. So in my original code that I put up here, I changed it because you can use point numbers. So I used 0.7, and you can see how that resizes and it's smaller, right? Now, the nice thing about making a class is you can use it over and over again. So all you have to do, if you want the same spacing underneath all of these, is tell each one of these buttons that you want the class home buttons to be applied to that. So you simply copy this, then you go to each button, you click in here, and you paste the code that you want to put applied to each button. Okay, and then when you click over here, it updates, and then it moves everything down, right? Now, in addition to this, uh, you could add some space to the top of this button, or even maybe more efficiently, put space on the bottom of the logo here to push all this stuff down. If this is a little close to that, and your goal is to try to replicate something that looks kind of like that. You can see right here, there's a bunch more space in between those buttons than what I have here. But then again, I created both things, and I have creative license to do whatever I want to do. So, this doesn't look bad to me that they're this close. They could be bigger, further apart. And the nice thing is, now that they're all pointing to the same style, all you have to do is change the style, and then they all update, right? So now it's 0.9, so they're a little further apart. Okay, but let's say that I want to put some space underneath the logo at the top. Now I could do that. I could do an inline style, which means I could find the logo and I could put the style right there. But one of the advantages of having a little style sheet here is if you create a style once, like a class, you can call it over and over again. So I'm going to make a class called oops, it's weird when it does that. It jumps. Okay, I'm gonna call this like MAR for margin marbot. So margin bottom. That's my secret code, right? You can call them anything you want. So then we're gonna make the curly braces. I'm gonna drag this back to the end here. Now I can copy this code here for margin bottom and put it here if I want, and then click in here. And what it'll do is it should add it'll make it so that anything that's using the marbot style will add 0.9 EMs to the bottom. So what that should do is take this amount of space and add it between this logo and the top button. But of course, in order to do that, I have to go to the logo itself and call the marbot style, the class, right? So once again, I'll just go in here and I'll type class equals quote, and this time I'll say marbot space, and then you can see it did it immediately. It put that kind of space in there, and now this is looking pretty good. There's a certain amount of space there, a certain amount of space here, and then the space between the buttons, right? And so I can save this, and I'm pretty much good to go. Now, in future videos, we'll work on linking these buttons to other pages. We'll make other pages. We'll work on the footer and the header, like I said. But for now, this is a good start. So what I would like you to do is do what I just did in this video, which is, of course, download the files and make a new site and point to the folder. And then go ahead and build this, wildcard 2 page. I'll delete that before I upload the files so that you'll only have the index page and the wildcard page. But go ahead and take your index page, save it as wildcard 2, and then start importing the graphics and putting in the code. You can open the wildcard page and copy and paste code like I did, and see if you can build this page to look like this wildcard 2 page. That'll be a good start for you. And then of course you'll still have a blank index page, and then the next order of business would be to export your graphics. You're welcome to delete all the graphics in the images folder after you build this wildcard page, but then go to XD, get rid of this this little iPhone 11 template if you have it. Break apart any of your repeat grids, and then highlight this and export the graphics into that www images folder as pings. Make sure that you do it as iOS, so you get all 3 sizes, and then go ahead and build your home page, or at least the middle content part of your home page in this template file. And then we can take a look at those, and I can give you feedback on those and answer questions. So this will be a good start for you to get a start on building your actual app. Okay, so like I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this wildcard 2 page, which I've saved, and I'll delete it out of the folder. And then I'll compress the folder and upload it so you guys can download it and just follow along with this video, build this wildcard 2 page, and then work on building your own home page here in Dreamweaver.